Jessi. Thank you so much for joining me on Culture Chat today.
Hi, Mimi. Thanks for having me.
Yes, very excited. We finally found some time to connect because you are a very busy, busy stunt woman.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of a gypsy. Kind of going all over
Well,
the place these days.
of course, and ironically, we were just talking off air, and you literally just drove across country. So
I
you
did.
really actually covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, yeah, over 2,000 miles in 2 days. So yeah.
Well, we'll jump right in. Obviously, you have got your start into stunts and you've worked your way. But I mean, this last big project that you worked on, of course, we can discuss that you were doubling the very one and only Linda Hamilton for her role in Terminator. That
Yeah.
must have been pretty epic.
It was it was a dream come true. I mean, I don't think it gets any better than that, honestly, as a stunt woman and as a woman in general. I mean, growing up in the 80s, I'm going to age myself. I mean, she was
I'm with
the
you. Don't worry about it.
role model. She was the one. She was the strongest woman we had to look up to. There weren't many out there, so um, looking up to her and seeing that growing up, and then all of a sudden getting to work with her and not only be her stunt double was absolutely a dream come true, and just more than I ever could have imagined my
Yeah,
career would
yeah.
take.
And, I have the same thing where I remember her and just thinking, wow, this lady is badass. And then I saw the
Yeah.
trailer. Of course, I was just at San Diego Comic Con and they were all there.
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
get, I didn't get,
Congratulations. That was awesome.
I didn't get to see any of them. I was in my own little
Right.
world, but she still looks pretty badass.
She does. I know she put a lot of training into it, a lot of time and effort. It's, I mean, she's amazing. She's just disciplined in everything that she does, whether it's her acting or physicality or training weapons, all that kind of stuff. So she really put her heart and soul into it.
Yeah, and so for you, I'm sure there was that first day on set type of thing with the nerves and whatnot. How do you get over that? Like, what do you do to psych yourself up, or just do you just dive in?
Well, it was a little bit of an interesting situation because when I actually first auditioned for this role, I had just come off of doubling Ronda Rousey on Mile 22. And I mean, another
Yes.
amazing, badass female, just super cool, another amazing opportunity. And she's really strong, obviously, really jacked, really in fantastic shape, and so I auditioned for this movie coming up. I didn't know what it was. They didn't actually tell me. They just said, "Can you come in?" I literally went from the airport from South America straight to the audition with my suitcases and everything. I didn't even get to go home or anything like that. I was jet lagged and I didn't know what I was auditioning for. They made us go through a bunch of fight sequences and I was super nervous, but the next day they actually called me. They said, "We'd like to offer you the job. And by the way, you're going to be doubling Sarah Connor." And in my mind, I mean, Sarah Connor in general, the character is just, legendary and amazing. I didn't assume it was going to be Linda Hamilton because I didn't know. She hasn't been in the last few movies, so I just
Right.
thought maybe, be a different actress. But then when I heard that, I almost had a heart attack on the spot. I mean, I'm glad I was at home when I found out because I was like panicking. I was like, what are you kidding me? Like I was running around the house screaming, super excited. um, and they said, you're a really great double for her right now. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you, in a couple weeks in Budapest because we actually ended up filming in Europe for almost 10 months, actually, in Budapest and Spain a little bit. So I got over there. We were training. Actually, the stunt team went over a few months early and started training ahead of time. So we already kind of had some of the fight choreography and some weapons training and all that. And right before we started filming, we knew the actors were coming in and we were going to train with them for a couple weeks before we actually started filming. And right around that time, my boss called me into the office and he said, "Hey, Jess," he said, the photos and information that we had about Linda Hamilton are a little bit outdated." He said, "This is her new headshot. These are her new measurements." And she was a lot smaller than they originally told me. And because I had just doubled Ronda Rousey, Linda Hamilton is so much more petite and just her body type is very different. Also, she's in her 60s,
Right.
and I mean, obviously she's still in amazing shape, but your muscle mass is very different at that
Yes.
at that point. So he said, "You have a couple weeks before they get here to try to match her look right now. Otherwise, we have to find somebody else."
Oh my gosh.
And I'd already been there training. I mean, I was envisioning my, life goal just slipping away from me because of a few pounds. So I was like, you know what? No, I can do it. I can do it. So I did. I went on a crazy workout routine and a eating plan and lost a bunch of weight. I had to lose a lot of muscle, which was
Right, that's what I
probably
was
the most
thinking, it's not
difficult.
even about the eating, it's like you
No,
literally
yeah.
have to just lose muscle mass. So what is it, like a no workout plan?
Well, kind of,
Crazy.
yes. It was a lot more cardio. I couldn't lift weights at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to be very careful because my background is gymnastics, and as a gymnast, I've always been muscular and I've always had a real strong body type. So I look at a set of weights and I'll gain muscle. So, I had to be really careful with that. Uh, so I think that kind of added to a little bit of the nervousness and the anticipation of meeting her for the first time, because I also heard that she was very particular about everything that she does and the people that she works with. And
Ah.
I wanted to obviously, make her happy with how
Yeah.
I looked because I was representing her on screen.
Yeah, of course, you wanted to
So
fit her vision.
exactly. So, and I knew that if she didn't like the way I looked or something wasn't quite right, we didn't match on camera, then, could have been bye-bye, you're going back home. And so I did everything I could in my power to do that. And the day that I met her was one of the most amazing and horrifying experiences in my life because I just was holding my breath the whole time. I wasn't sure if I was going to go home or not. I wasn't sure if she
Right.
liked me or not, and I had already worked so hard to be there. And this was such a cool opportunity. I was so afraid I was going to miss out on, but thank God she ended up loving me and was very happy with, my body type and how I looked. And she said, she even said, I've heard that you've put a lot of work in, and she said, I appreciate that. And she said, we're going to be hungry together on this whole movie. Because she had obviously done a lot too and lost quite a bit of weight and,
Of course.
gotten into shape for it as well. But she had a year to do it and I had about 3 weeks.
Exactly. I was thinking, well, they
So,
couldn't have told you this earlier?
well, that's the thing. Sometimes communication isn't the greatest in the stunt industry. So sometimes you just have to go with it. So, but it ended up working and it was great. And as nervous as I was about that, once she saw me and hugged me, I was like, this is it, man. This is the best day of my life. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that is amazing. I love to hear that. I always love hearing the stories where, you have these stars and celebrities and people that you love seeing on screen. And I love when there's a connect of them as true
Yeah.
people. And that's always
Yes.
really, really
Yeah.
satisfying to hear. So, well, we
Yeah.
can't wait to see it and see you in action. And I will be saying, wow. She lost all of that muscle mass in 3 weeks. Good for her, I guess. I don't know if your body's happy about it, but for sure
Yeah,
the film
it was an adjustment period, but yeah,
for sure the
it's worth
film is
it.
going to be amazing. So
It was, yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so awesome. You hit on something that I find really interesting because therein lies also my same frustration with not just the celebrities, but I think the public in general, where, I watch an interview for some action movie and I see, the actor and they're like, yeah, I did all this training. And it is true. They have to put in
Yep.
so much work and they're trying to like pull off that there's some sort of, martial artist or like amazing superhero and all these things. And I know they put in a lot of work, but I just feel like, and maybe because I had like a small taste of what it's like to be on that side, I just feel like there's so little appreciation for stunt performers. And I feel like I don't think that, stunt performers need to have like this limelight because that's the point. You're like doubling,
Right.
you're kind of in the shadows or whatever. But I feel like when credit is due, it absolutely should be given, especially for hard work. Because as a kung fu martial artist, a teacher,
Yes.
hard work is it, right? And so even for something like that, where you had to literally change your body type, like they always show, oh, look at so-and-so for this film, they had to lose all this weight. And like you said, they have like the year to do it with
Right.
professional trainers and
Yes.
chefs and all these people at their
Yes.
disposal.
Yes.
Whereas usually the stunt team does not have those type of resources
Nope. That's
or
true.
funding.
I did not have a personal chef. I did, I had to actually do some online FaceTime workouts with a trainer in LA just to help me out because I wasn't exactly sure the best way to
Yeah.
lose the weight that
The
quickly.
safe way also. I mean, because
Right. Oh,
obviously
absolutely. Well, that's the
obviously
thing.
you want to do it, but it's like, okay, well, what's the safest way? Because
Right.
you also need your body after this project.
Yeah. Yes. If you don't have enough energy because you don't have enough calories, you can't safely perform. I mean, these big stunts that you're doing and be active all day long and do fight choreography for 12 hours a day, when you're in rehearsal, you're just exhausted all the time. And it's not a good place to be. your brain gets a little foggy when you don't eat carbs for a long time. So you really need to have that focus, and there is a balance, and you do have to do it safely. And that was what I wanted to do. So
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I just feel like, just not enough credit is given. That's also me going, oh, I hate it when, someone's saying, oh, yeah, I did all this stuff and whatever. And then, like, you watch the film, you know which cuts they're using because
yeah,
it makes sense,
yes,
like,
yeah,
well, what am I going to use, the action where it looks authentic. And, but also, I feel like it's just, yeah, I just feel like you guys are really overlooked in the industry. And, even things like, I see you've done a lot of work on video games, so you must have done a
hmm
ton of motion capture. And of course, I
hmm
saw you worked on Alita, Battle Angel. Obviously, that was a lot of
yep,
motion capture. And so even
yep,
something like that, where people think, well, that's CGI, that
right,
stuff. But it's like,
right,
no, there's a body that's
yeah,
moving that is doing those flips and doing like those handed
yeah.
handstands and all these crazy moves. Like it's funny because everyone likes to chalk things up to the other thing. I just feel like you guys don't get enough credit where it's due. And but something like motion capture for sure, I think is definitely misconstrued.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And there is a lot of that. There's a lot of times where I've flat out heard my actresses take credit for an entire fight scene that they weren't even part of that day, that they weren't even there on set. And you're like, well, okay. But to be fair, my job is to be them and is to make them look good. I'm not doing stunts to become famous. You know what I mean? I don't want my face on the cover of People magazine. I don't want to be recognized on the street. I like my anonymity. I like being able to, just kind of go in and do my job and then go out and live my life outside of that. And that's, it is really nice when an actor or actress takes the time to recognize you and your work and even the danger that you've put yourself in. I mean,
Exactly.
Linda Hamilton did so much of her own stuff on Terminator. I was blown away by how much she was willing to do and could do. But then again, there was stuff that was absolutely too dangerous, or just something that was just not safe enough for her to do, and she wasn't comfortable with. So there were a few times that I had to step in and hit the ground and things like that. And she was always very, very aware of what I was doing for her, and thanked me, and was very kind and always was checking up on me, and was very grateful that to have me there on set. And whether or not they give you public credit is not necessary, I guess. I mean, it's a little bit. I know there's a big deal about the stunt category not being present at the Oscars right now. So I think maybe if some of the actors were a little bit more
Vocal. Yeah.
vocal about it,
Yeah.
then maybe we would see things like that change. But to be honest, as long as they appreciate you on the day, that's all.
Yeah.
All I
Yeah,
really,
and I've had that experience as well, where like you're somewhere and they come over to thank you for putting in the work for the day,
yeah,
and that's great. Like you
yeah,
said, it's not that
yeah,
you need
yeah.
public recognition, but at the
No.
same time, I just feel like, again, maybe
Well, it
that's
does
the
need to be.
kung fu
There needs to be an
background.
awareness, because, like you said about the motion capture, for sure. I don't think a lot of people even realize that there are real people involved in making video game. I mean, and maybe that's just something fairly, somewhat recent over the years. Instead of just doing a completely CG video game and animation, everything. Now that they can actually record our movements and have that kind of actual action and movement on film, and then they can animate over top of it. So it is a combination of the computer graphics and what we're doing in real life. But yeah, you're right. I don't think most people realize that we are there actually doing the running, the jumping, the falling, the fighting, all of that stuff. It might not be on a movie set necessarily, but it absolutely is in a studio where we have the room to do that stuff, and it's real. It's actually someone doing it, even though we don't look like the character because they've animated over top of us,
Yes.
which is great because I can be many characters.
Right.
I can do all kinds of action for the same video game as multiple characters, because they just take my movements and then animate whoever character they want me to be over top of that. So
Yeah,
it's a
and
cool process.
yeah, I feel like just people don't realize that. But also, from my understanding, I was speaking to someone on the technical side. They're like, well, it's helpful for animators to have a starting point because,
Absolutely.
then you get like just the extension of movements and the
Yes.
accuracy. And then
Yes.
you
That's a
actually
good,
are
yeah.
able to make it look more real. And that's the point. Like, yeah,
Right.
CG is great to some extent,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
the point
absolutely.
is you want it to look real,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
So I think people don't realize they're probably like, oh, people can't really move like that, because
Yeah.
I've seen you move and
Yeah.
I've watched your reel, and I love that actually, one of your performance starts was in Cirque du Soleil, and I love Cirque du Soleil. So
Me too. It is probably one of the most beautiful arts on the planet to be true. It's amazing. It was
so
awesome.
so your background's in gymnastics, and so
Yeah.
did you went an audition for Cirque, obviously, and then
I did, and that's actually another funny story too. I was a gymnast. I started gymnastics when I was really young. I was an active kid, and my mom knew the owner of the local gymnastics, gym in my hometown. I'm from a very small, town in Michigan, and um, there weren't many of us on the team, and I didn't go to the Olympics or anything like that. I wasn't a great gymnast, honestly. I was scared of everything. You can ask my coaches; they probably are baffled that I'm even doing this kind of work now, because I was such a chicken when I was a kid. But so I got into gymnastics, and I started doing a lot of live shows. I performed at like SeaWorlds and you know different theme parks, state fairs. I was a carny, legit, for like a couple of years, quick traveling from show to show. But it was a great background, and it really gave me a well-rounded sense of entertainment and different acts and things like that. And I wasn't doing just one act. And so I was actually kind of surprised because Cirque reached out to me. When I found out what Cirque du Soleil was, I was just, enamored and floored by all that talent. And I went on their website just to see what their audition process was, because I'm like, wow, that'd be really cool to be part of that. And the list they had of like requirements and, audition and video that you had to send, I was like, oh no, this is way above me and my talent level. I don't have that. I'm not the best in the world at any one act. I didn't think that, I honestly, I didn't even apply. And because it was just too intimidating. And I was like, I'm just not qualified for what they're looking for.
right.
And a couple years later, they reached out to me and they said, we'd like you to come audition. And I thought, well, maybe they got the wrong girl, but I'm going anyways. So I flew myself out to Vegas, where they were holding a 2-day audition process. And the first day, I mean, they asked us to do our specialty stuff and what we were most comfortable with, and a little bit of choreography, a little bit of this and that, strength things. And at the end of the first day, they said, if we call your number, we'd like you to come back tomorrow and continue the audition process. Well, they didn't call my number. And I went up to the guy, and I thought I did pretty well.
You hit all the marks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't embarrass myself except for once when I fell on my face. But anyways, I went up to the guy at the end of the day, and I said, I'd like to come back tomorrow. And he didn't even look at me. I mean, he was doing some paperwork and taking notes, and he was like, did we call your number? And I was like, no, but I would like to come back tomorrow. And he looked up at me, and he kind of was like, he said, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. To this day, that is an act of God. I have no idea why he said yes. I don't even know why I asked. I should have gotten cut from the first day of that audition.
Yeah.
I came back the next day, and then it started getting really serious. They started cutting people after everything. They'd say, okay, we want you to climb this rope.
Yes.
Or we want you to do chin-ups on this bar, or we want you to
Yes.
do this dance choreography, or we want you to do this trampoline move. And they started cutting people after every single thing. And we went from like 100 people that day down to 6 of us. And I was the only female left in that group of people that were still there through the whole day. They had cut everybody else. And then at the end of the day, they were like, well, thank you very much. We will call you. And all of us were like, what does that mean? Like, did we get a job? Like, what? I mean, I didn't even know if they were auditioning me for a specific show.
Right.
Or anything. I mean, I had so much random experience of doing live performances that I didn't know if it was trapeze or tumbling or diving or whatever it was. I had no idea. So I went back to, I was actually working at the SeaWorld in San Antonio at that point, and I went back home, and everyone was like, how was it? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I think I did good. I think I got cut. I'm not really sure. And then I didn't hear anything for almost 6 months.
Wow,
And
6 months.
Yeah.
So you just forgot it. You're like, yeah,
I did.
they've moved
I
on.
was like, well, chalk it up to a good experience.
Yes, yes.
It was worth it. I had to do it. I'm glad I did it, but totally not surprised if they never call me.
Yes.
I absolutely forgot about it. And I will never forget this day. I was at my friend's birthday party, and all of us at SeaWorld had gone out to, to have dinner together. And I got a call from a Nevada number. and I let it go to voicemail because I was like, I don't know anybody in Nevada,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm at my friend's party, so. Well, at the end of the night, we were walking out to the car, and I checked my voicemail, and I just started screaming in the parking lot because it was somebody from Cirque, and they had called to leave a message, and they were like, "We wanted to know if you were interested and available of coming to work with us in Las Vegas." And I was like, "Oh my!" I'm running around the parking lot like screaming to all my friends, like, "It's Cirque du Soleil, Cirque du Soleil!" So they ended up hiring me for just a temporary position because someone was out. She had a baby. She was going to have a baby, and they needed a replacement. And I actually had some Russian swing experience, and they were looking for a female that had Russian swing experience, and they didn't have a lot of people that
Wow.
fit that criteria. So I said, absolutely, I'm interested, and they said, great, can you start like next week? so, so usually Cirque has you go to what they call formation, which is their training
Their
base up
training. Yeah.
in Canada. And they teach you everything from the choreography to the acts to the
Hmm.
makeup to the, your costume fit and all that. I didn't do that. I went straight to Vegas. They said, we need you in the show as soon as possible. So we will train you on site, and we will let you wear the costumes that we already have. And we'll teach you the makeup, and you'll just learn things as quickly as you can. I got there on a Tuesday. I was in the show on Friday. It was
Wow.
the fastest acclimation I think that they've ever
Well,
had.
I feel like there is something to that though. One is, going back to the audition process, I always believe in asking as well. Like I always believe like if you don't put yourself out there, if you want something, you need to ask for it. I have been really fortunate in my career of different things. Obviously Wallem is my life, but like if I
Right?
decide I want to interview so and so, I'm gonna go up and ask. And so I've
Yep.
been like even at Comic Con, I like met a
Thing. You
ton of
ask now, you
people.
have not.
Yeah,
You will
and
gain. You can gain everything, and you will lose
yeah,
nothing.
I mean the worst they could say is no.
Exactly.
And it's like you're there, and I feel like that persistence shows a lot. And I think the auditioner probably knew that because something like Cirque, they know it's a grueling environment. It's not easy. And if this person here wants it that bad and is bold enough to say, I'm gonna put
Right.
myself out there, and not just
Yep.
take no for an answer, I think that actually does show a lot. So and like you said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
ask. So, starting off there, I think that was great. And then, it's funny, I'm so the Cirque du Soleil process is always in my mind. It's like I had met them in the late 90s
Mhm.
on a plane going to China, and they were
Oh, wow.
casting for Lanuba in Orlando, and they were
Oh,
like, "Oh, you're going to China. Let me send me your reel." I'm like, "No, I don't want to do anything with Cirque du Soleil. I'm good."
yeah.
And then they called my kung fu school when Cow is casting as well.
Yes, of
Like, do you know
course.
anybody for this? I was like, "Oh, not to the caliber of what I know they were looking for." Because
Right.
and then they would tell me what that list was. I was like, okay, because they're
Yeah.
like, well, do you want to come out? I was like, I do not want to live in Vegas. Like, it's not my thing.
To be-
It's for me, right?
That's
But
a
I
good
was
point.
also like, you would cut me because I am not climbing a rope. Like, I'm sorry,
Right.
I
Right.
can't
Right.
climb a
Right.
rope.
Well,
I can do all these other things. But I feel like that's the thing about Cirque because my understanding is if they need you to step into something else, they need to know you have the skill set to adapt, right? So that's
right.
why they test you all
Absolutely.
around, even though you're like,
Absolutely.
I'm a diver. Well, you may be a
Right.
diver today, but tomorrow you may need to do this and it may require a little something different. So it's such a versatile role, but obviously it prepared you for so many other things because then you I mean it's kind of a natural segue into stunts.
Absolutely, it was. And that was the cool thing about doing my live shows for so long. Every show I did was so different. And I always tell people I'm not the best at anything, but I'm a little bit good at a lot of stuff. I've had a lot of random
I think
experiences
you're
and
being very humble, but yeah. It's
but
just getting to be in Cirque and doing all these things you've been doing in the stunt industry. I know that that means you must excel in all those areas. And they don't just
so
have
I'm
you go in
telling you,
there.
I appreciate that. Hard work and determination have a lot to do with it, but I mean, I have been given opportunities that I probably never should have been given. And I'm telling you, if you ask people that I grew up with, or that have coached me, or that I've worked with, they'd be like, "We don't have any idea why she is doing anything because we didn't see a lot of potential in that one." So, but I'm very thankful to be where I'm at. And you're right, everything has led down that path, and live shows open the door to Cirque. And that's what they actually told me at Cirque. And I asked them, I said, why did you even pick me? Because I'm not really good at, I don't have that one act that I'm the
Yeah,
best in the
yeah,
world
yeah.
at. And they said, you know what? We needed someone to fill in a few spots. And, you had so much experience of doing all of these little things. In fact, when I started, the guy that was offering me the position said, if I were you, I'd actually ask for more money because you have a little bit more experience going in than a lot of people do. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm just happy to be here. I
You're
would
like,
do this for
I don't want to
free. Like,
negotiate. I don't want
let's
them to
not push
say
my
like
luck,
you're out of here.
Right? So, it's just been a really amazing journey, and I'm just so thankful for the way that things have turned out. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, all those things. And the cool part was when my temporary job at Cirque was done after those few months, when that girl came back after having her baby, somebody else was out with an injury. But because
Always.
I had learned more things when I was there, because that's what you do, you learn as much as you can. And I love doing all these different things, whether it was a character role or all this, a different act. And so I was able to still step in for that role. And then when they came back, somebody else was out for some reason. And I ended up being literally a temporary on-call artist, but I would never miss a show in 5 years. I was there full time every single day. There's always someone out with an injury. There's always someone
Yeah.
out on vacation. There's always some, you know what I mean, a reason for me. So my show would change all the time.
Yeah.
I had 6 different acts that I did and probably 18 different character roles. I mean, I had more costumes in my closet than anybody else there
Yeah,
because
because they all usually stick to their role.
exactly. There were people that were like contortionists. That's all they did. They did this amazing, incredible act, but those girls couldn't do pull-ups, or
Yep.
climb a rope either because
Yep.
that wasn't required for what they were doing. But they were the best in the world at that one thing, so they
Yeah.
were very important to the show.
Right, right, right.
But they weren't really required to do a lot of other things. So,
Yeah,
they
very
need people like
versatile.
me to fill in the blanks and oh, well, we need someone to do this. And I mean, there were days where I would literally put costumes underneath of costumes just to have a quick enough
Yeah.
change to get to my next act,
Oh my
to be on
gosh.
set or on stage. It was amazing, and I loved it. And
Yeah.
that absolutely was again another preparation to getting to stunts. It just
Yeah. And, thinking back to that first audition where you said there you are, um, 6 people and you're the only woman. I mean, that is something I definitely want to talk about as well. Cause as a fellow, woman, it does feel like sometimes you're the cheese stands alone. You're like, oh, okay. Well, it's such, a male dominated industry like stunt
hmm
performing
hmm
and anything that's physical like that, right? Because there's
absolutely.
that stereotype and everything. I mean, how was it breaking into the stunt industry for you, just in terms of the climate of how you were perceived, as a woman in stunts? I mean, I think generally amongst peers, there's a variance from person to person, but like kind of that general overall feeling, what was that like for you?
Well, thankfully, like you said, the entertainment industry is mostly male dominated, and even the live shows I did, there were only 2 girls to every 10 guys. And so I was used to that environment. So to me, that was nothing new. Um, and I've always kind of said this, my life as a performer, whether was at live shows, my state fairs, whether it's Cirque du Soleil or at stunts, it's kind of like perpetual college. Everyone's this in this kind of party mode and it's fun and we're the cool kids and, but, um, sometimes maturity is not always the prominent feature on that environment. So to be a woman with a male dominated, cast or crew is you're gonna get the comments. You're gonna have a little bit of you know, it is like college. That's not just how I can explain it.
Because, people don't know this, but since I've been on set, it's not even just the rest of the stunt player performers. We're talking even the directors and the producers and the
Yeah.
ADs and
Yes.
the crew,
True. The lights,
meaning the
sound,
lighting, the grips,
everybody.
all those
Yes.
are usually
Yes.
men. And so like
Ab-
I would be on set waiting and here I am, what am I surrounded by all the guys rolling up the
yes.
wire and you get like you
Yes.
said, you get the comments or you get them,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
general everyone's fairly professional. They
Yeah.
do
No.
their
Absolutely.
task, whatever, but you do
Yes.
feel very much like, okay, I'm the minority here.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely that. And like I said, I was kind of used to that from the past, so that alone didn't bother me. What my biggest thing has always been through my entire life, even in elementary school and high school when I was a gymnast, and when guys when guys give you compliments, I found out really early in life that I would rather have been told that I was talented and that I was professional or hardworking or really good at sports than pretty. that to me, I wanted to prove to people that I have earned where I was at. And unfortunately, in the stunt industry, the film industry, a lot of women get to where they're at because they're pretty or because they are somebody's girlfriend or,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and they haven't necessarily earned it.
Yeah. No.
And that to me is a really big thing. And I'm not saying, I mean, some women they have earned it and they absolutely deserve to be there. And they've got incredible backgrounds and they've worked their butts off, to get there. And they haven't cut corners and they haven't done things that are questionable to get to where they're at.
Right.
But there's enough of that happening that it's frustrating. And sometimes when you're on set, people don't know if you have earned your place there or if you have slept your way there.
Right. Right.
And so until they figure that out, sometimes how they treat you can vary.
Right. It's almost like they're testing the waters. Like, oh, like which
Absolutely.
performer is this?
Oh, like
Where
who
can
do you
I?
know on set?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I remember I actually I was helping a buddy out with a very small project one time, and I was a kind of assistant coordinating. I don't coordinate that much, and that I'm maybe eventually, but he had given me an opportunity to come along and help him out, and I was assisting and stuff. And he wasn't there one day, so I was kind of working with a couple of the actors to kind of show them some fight stuff and falling it down and stuff. And I remember I demonstrated it for them, and they're all kind of like, "Oh wow, like you actually hit the ground pretty hard. We didn't know you could do that." And I was like, "Well, I'm an actual stunt person, right? Like I do perform." And I said, "I've done Cirque du Soleil," and they were blown away. They had no idea that I had actually any talent or any experience at all doing stunts or anything athletic. They thought that I was there because my buddy got me on for whatever reason. And that's probably the most frustrating thing about the industry is that a lot of times women don't get credit for the work they put in. We have to work harder. To get the recognition.
Absolutely. And what people don't think about also is that, like I remember back in the day, but like there are certain times where men are doing stunts and they can wear certain things like pads underneath stuff because of their costumes. I'm like, women are usually in some sort of scantily clad thing. Like, if I showed you the photos of the ridiculous shows that I had to do, I'm like,
yes.
It's like swimwear. And I'm like, okay, so I couldn't wear a gator back when I hit the tree or whatever. And I'm like, well, this is, and it's like, they don't realize there's a little bit more, not that the stunts we do are harder or anything like that. Cause I mean, hats off, but there are definitely things that women have to do and put up with that don't go on the other end of it. And, thinking back to what you were saying, one of the first shows I worked on was Mortal Kombat Conquest. And I could definitely look at that environment and think the same thing as you. Like I'm going, here I am like busting my butt. I'm doing flips off of rocks and I'm like, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I'm not quite sure everybody else has put in the time, or I don't know, and then you can see, this, person walks off with the producer or whatever. So you don't know, you make, and then of course, Me Too comes out, and like you start hearing all these things and, unfortunately it is like some women don't put in the time, but at the same time, it's that I think men taking advantage of their power. Right. And so women who want to work or are trying to, work their way into the industry, it's a very hard thing to kind of look at and go, well, why is this happening? And where does it start? It's like, and I feel like for me, I feel like that's definitely where it starts is that, men abuse their power and then, self-worth goes down and, and so it's so.
No, and there's a lot of that. And I think, that's what you said about self-worth is huge because I think, and I will never justify anything that men do when they do abuse their power. However, women have a lot more power than they think to enable that and stop it from happening. Because in my experience, I have had from time to time men say inappropriate things or offer inappropriate things. And at the time you think, man, maybe he is trying to help me. Maybe it wouldn't be that bad if I, and then you go, wait a minute. No, I do not need that. That is not the way I want to be successful in my career. That is not what I want to be known for. And you have that as a woman, you have a choice. You do. You have a choice to turn that work down, to walk away from that situation, from that guy, whatever it is. And unfortunately, because so many people in the industry are desperate for work, they take those offers
Yep,
because
absolutely.
they think that they're not going to get another chance. They think that this is going to be my big break. And if I do this because of these reasons, it doesn't matter because it's going to catapult my career and then I don't have, then I'll be fine after that. Absolutely not. Like 100% you can walk away from that situation every time it happens, and it will not be detrimental to your career.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
the guy that is saying that kind of stuff to you is not the person that you want to work for anyways.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely
And
not.
if
No.
you have to base your career on that kind of a person, it's just not, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. There are more people out there that you can work for, work with, that will respect you, that will give you those opportunities in a legitimate fashion. And that to me, I know that women are victims and they have been victims. I need them to stop being victims because we have a little bit more control over the situation, I think, than a lot of than we're led to believe in that situation. No one is holding you at gunpoint to take a job for someone because they ask you to do sexual favors or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, we have a little bit more power to that. I mean, I have shut guys down. I have embarrassed them on the spot when they have said things like that to me. And I have had no problem walking away. And it has never once negatively impacted my career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
There's,
I think there's a lot to be said also for now, thank goodness that, people are having some repercussion
and that's the thing. The
of
awareness now is
negativity.
huge. And
Awareness
I'm
is
very
much
thankful to be
higher.
in the industry right now
Yeah.
because I know back in the day when kind of the cowboy era happened, I know that those things were kept on the
And not to say they were right, or like you said, people were accepting of it and it was right at the time,
right.
and that was just
But
how it was in the
yeah, it
old
was just
days.
kind of something that happened and nobody really talked about it. Nobody really knew much of, they didn't, it was just kind of part of the industry. And I
Yeah.
know it's changed a lot. And I'm very, very thankful that there is more awareness these days and there's a safe place for us to go as women to,
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
talk about this and to have that support with each other, and to not put up with it anymore. Like it's time,
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely.
time.
I know. I was just thinking, like, on the very like innocent end of it, right? Like, when people are like, "Oh, but you're a stunt performer, but you're so pretty," and I'm like, "What does that have to
Yeah.
freaking do with
You don't
anything?"
look like a stunt performer,
Yeah,
but what do you look like?
and
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
thinking about all the female stunt performers I know, and they all are very pretty, actually.
Yes.
Like, I'm thinking about all the women I've worked with,
Yep.
or all the people I've ever met, and I'm like, they all are always pretty because you know what? They're very fit. They're very, they
Yes.
take care of their bodies, and they're,
Yes.
so it's
Yes.
really
Yep.
ironic though. Like, those are the comments you get, and
Yeah.
it's just
No, for sure.
such
And
an eye roll for
and
me. I'm always
you
like,
don't have to
oh god.
be, offended by every
No,
comment or
no.
compliment for sure. I mean, a lot of guys are afraid to even give a legitimate
Yes,
compliment
yes,
these
and
days
then
or if
there's
it's
a
the
balance
wrong
though.
way. And
Yeah,
there's very much both sides of
yeah.
the fence kind of a thing. And you can usually tell who is the creeper and who
And
is the,
who's genuine? Yeah, of
genuine.
course,
Exactly.
of course, of
Exactly. And
course.
and I just really encourage any woman, whether they're in this industry or not, to, have the self-confidence and the self-worth, because that alone is going to restrict so much of that stuff that's happening. Men like that look for victims. They look for people that they can manipulate and they can, prey on. And you can't be that woman. You can't be that. You can't just let things happen to you. You can't just let, your self-esteem go down the tubes. You have to know what you're worth, and you're worth more than that. And that is absolutely not acceptable when it does happen in those situations. So
Yeah,
it's
I feel like, and just to wrap that part up, I would say women need to have kind of that support system, right? So, like, because victims,
absolutely
of course, are victims because they're victims, right? So, but
right.
knowing that they can talk to other female stunt
Yep.
performers, or also talk to other people in the industry, male or female, that
Yep.
have spoken out.
Oh,
And I mean, there's
absolutely.
definitely places that they can
Yep.
get support. So, that is definitely
There
something
are
that
a
we
lot of great men out
absolutely
there. There's a
encourage.
lot of great stuntmen that are very supportive of us, and
Yeah,
that you know, hate seeing it just as much as we do.
yeah, absolutely.
And we'll take a stand with us. So it's a good time. It's a the industry is not all bad. I mean, I remember, coming from a small town and people, first of all, they heard I was going to Vegas. They thought that was the
You're
then
obviously
to
gonna be a
Hollywood.
head,
You're
yeah,
like, oh my gosh,
showgirl.
all these people, all these horrible things are gonna happen. All these people are gonna try to take advantage of you. And it's like, thankfully that really has not been my experience that far. And maybe I've been, really fortunate in that way. But, I think people, you have to be smart about who you align yourself with and who you make your friendships with and who you make your professional alliances with and things like that. And I think it makes a huge difference. There's a lot of great people out there, and Hollywood can be supportive and it can be wonderful. It's
Oh yeah, for sure. But I feel like, not to keep on this path, but it's like you're a very strong and independent woman already, right? So obviously you're going to put that vibe off.
right.
And so it's much less likely that someone would see you as a victim,
Absolutely.
right? And so
Yep.
like it's who you prey on. And so I mean, I'll be honest, I
Absolutely it
was
is. Absolutely it is. And
yeah.
I've seen it happen on set. I've seen it happen to other people.
Oh
And you better believe that a second I see that happening, I'm over there and I'm taking that woman. I'm like, listen,
yeah. Good for you.
do not need to put up with that for a second,
Yes, yes, yes.
and I hope that, you know, I think that's what it's more about. It's not about, I mean, it's really fun to do stunts and it's really awesome to be in movies and things like that. But if it's about relationships with people, and it's about having that community and having that support system, building the people. I mean, the people that I work with, that you do stunts with, you really have to trust,
Yeah, of course. It's a huge trust industry.
anyone, you can get injured at any time, and it is scary. Like if your boss all of a sudden is, making threats because you won't do something that he wants you to do in an inappropriate way, and now you're questioning your safety on set. That's a horrible situation to be in, and I hope that nobody ever has to deal with that. You know what I mean, from here on out. But like it can happen, and it will. But that's why we got to stick together and really have that community and that support.
Absolutely.
And that's the most important thing I think about being in this environment, in this industry, is being there for each other.
Absolutely. And speaking of safety, I've seen on set where things go the wrong way for whatever reason. Knock on wood, fortunately, it seems like things have gone really well for you. But have there been times where you've had like the injuries or that things have gone wrong, and like how do you recover from that? And what's been that part of the experience? Because people must say, "Oh my God, isn't it dangerous?" You're like, "No, not at all. Stunt performing is not dangerous. I just set on fire yesterday." Like, no, not dangerous. Like, it's a given, it's dangerous. But so how do you deal with injury, and how do you deal with when things don't go exactly right? Because I feel like that part of it is really key to being a stunt performer, because you have to know things are going to happen.
Yes. And I give a lot of credit to my background, because as a gymnast, I mean, I was hurt more in gymnastics before I was even in high school than I probably have in my entire stunt career. I mean, I was always kind of an accident prone person, I mean, broken bones and knee surgeries and all kinds of stuff like that, even before I was in high school. So, it's part of the job. Part of being an athlete and somebody active and a performer, you're going to have injuries. And the whole point is to reduce that risk as much as possible. And, it's prevention. It's taking care of your body. It's training properly. It's when it comes to stunts, it's knowing how to fall properly. It's knowing, what you can do to be absolutely prepared before you do it, to eliminate the potential risks. I mean, there's always going to be something that maybe somebody didn't catch, or, you can tweak something because, maybe the actor forgot the choreography and all of a sudden he's swinging punches at you and you're backed against the wall and you're going to get hit, so there are obviously things that happen. We are human, we are fallible. But my big thing, I would say, is just being prepared as much as possible. And you can only be prepared by training and being in that situation over and over again, practicing fights with your friends and with different people, so you can learn how to adapt and move and quickly, that's probably the best way to I think be prepared and eliminate a lot of those potential risks. But also asking questions. And that's another big thing for women, is that a lot of times in the past, we were never really encouraged to be the ones asking the questions, because then the men were, oh, well, it's offensive to them that we're questioning what they're doing, whether that was, well, how did you rig this? And, or, what is this going to do when I do this? And, women are not asking those questions because we're doubting men or because we're doubting, their ability or their, but it is us on the line. Ultimately, it is me doing the stunt. And if I have a question about how something is rigged or what's going to happen in this sequence, I have the right to ask that because it is me, my body, my safety on the line. And I think that's another big thing. Women need to start being more vocal about those things. If they do have any questions or issues or concerns, find someone that you can ask, whether even if it's not directly, the director or your, find someone that you can talk to answer, to get those questions answered for you before you do anything that you're not 100% sure about. I mean, that's going to eliminate a lot of stuff because most things happen because of lack of communication or misunderstanding between a timing issue or, oh, I thought you went to go left, but you went right. All of those things can really be eliminated if the communication is good. And I mean, again, that's the one thing about me. I've never been afraid to ask. I've never been afraid.
I'm gathering that from you.
Going back to that, yeah. And I understand sometimes, it's a rush, and you gotta hurry up and go. We don't have time to practice this, and it's like that should never be the case. You really want to be able to work with people, have people on your team that are not pressured by time and the directors to get things done, because when people start to rush and to panic and to change things without rehearsing, that's when injuries happen. That's when
absolutely. So what's like for you in your mind, the one stunt that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got through that, or I'm glad that one's over, check, don't need to do it again, or what is like kind of something in your mind that you're just like super happy it's over with, or that you're very proud of?
Question. There's been a couple times where, so as a gymnast, it's an individual sport, right? Mm-hmm. I don't rely on a team a lot, right, for my performance. It's just kind of me.
Yeah.
So trust issues, I think, have been a real big thing for me because I've always had to rely on myself. So
right,
when I do rely on someone else, whether it's a rigger or another stunt performer, to make sure I'm doing something right, it's a little bit of a stress. And so that to me, especially if I don't know a lot about it, like I'm not a licensed rigger. I don't, have my own rigging company or I'm all my own equipment. So I do try to learn as much as I can about the stunt that I'm about to do. But because some of that stuff, is a little bit, especially when you start out, you don't know all the lingo and all the equipment and all the stuff, they're just like, here, go on this wire. You're going to go that way. You're like, okay, so I think a lot of times when I'm on a wire and you're going to be ratcheted through the air and you're supposed to land over in that general vicinity and you're supposed to have this weapon on the ground that you can't drop because you don't want to break it, and then you got to hit that mark. Don't show your face to the camera, but yet, and there can be a lot going on. And that to me can be stressful when, you're relying to go off somebody else's timing. Mm-hmm. If they're counting down for you or if they're doing a fight sequence that leads you into your mark. And for some reason, you're a little bit off, whether it's you or them or the combination of both, or, those situations to me get a little stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the more variables involved.
Yes, the more variables involved.
The more,
yeah. So, I mean, you're working on all these big projects and things like that. And I haven't done stunts in like 20 years. So it feels very dated. I'm thinking, okay, for me, I learned everything like on set, ready to go, like, oh, okay, we're going to do this today. And I'm like, oh man. Yeah. But I happen to have worked on this like Hong Kong director project where they just like throw you in, so it was crazy.
Those are amazing.
But like for you, like, do they actually give you rehearsal time so that you can like, okay, here's what the thing is going to be? Do you feel like most of the time you're very prepared going into a project, like you've done that stunt before, or at the very least you've worked in, you've done a ratchet or you've done an air ram, or
absolutely.
You don't feel unprepared?
I'd say yes and no. I say the answer to that is yes and no. I mean, there are lots of situations where you feel prepared and you're like, oh, okay, I've done something like that before. Whatever. You trust the people you're working with and you trust your own abilities. It's great. And there's definitely some times where it's on the fly and they change things and they're like, hey, can you jump over that real quick and then land over there and do this flip? And you're like, probably.
Yeah. Okay. So in that regard, there's still a little bit of that.
There's definitely, I mean, and there's way to be 100%
Yeah,
prepared for every single thing that,
of
especially
course.
when you're starting out, you're
Yeah.
never going to have that experience until you get the
Until you
experience.
do it.
So
And
you do.
yeah, and that's what people have asked me because I said, well, you gotta just
But
gotta
it is important as a stunt performer. You need to take responsibility to be upfront. And again, like even if they ask you to do something you haven't done before, just say, hey, can I run through that real quick? Can I
right.
rehearse it for a second? Whether it's a driving gag, if it's a car you've never been in before, you need to test that thing out. You don't know how the brakes feel. You don't know how the
Yeah.
steering feels until you get in that
Yeah,
vehicle and try.
overconfidence is never a good thing.
No, no. It's good to not doubt yourself and
Of
your abilities, but it's
course.
never, you don't want to oversell yourself too, because
Yes.
again,
Yeah,
ego's getting
that will
in the way.
backfire.
Yes, absolutely. And you can hurt
And
yourself
then
or
you're,
somebody else.
yeah, you can hurt yourself, hurt others. I think, going back to what you said about, well, you're not an individual performer here. It is a team. It is usually if you're doing a stunt,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of other moving pieces, a
Yes.
lot of other people. If you're doing a fight sequence, you could be with an actor. And if you
Oh,
give the
yeah.
actor a
Oh,
black
absolutely.
eye, oh man, you're in big trouble because I mean, that means their either makeup department's going to hate you or they've got
Yes.
to change the schedule, things
Yep.
like that. And which is also, why actors have stunt performers because sometimes it's like, yeah, their face is too valuable. They need to be in a lot of other scenes. And so, hence the
Absolutely.
second unit, right?
Yep.
But
Exactly. I think the industry is, by now, they understand that, a lot of stunts need rehearsal time, and we need, to make sure that we're set up properly. We have the right amount of time to do a stunt that they're asking for, especially if they end up trying to change things or, you know, I think it's getting a lot better where usually you have a little bit of rehearsal time, and and if even if they don't offer it to you, you can still ask,
yeah.
and there's some things, well, maybe I haven't done this kind of fight sequence, or maybe I haven't done that kind of a slide across the floor before, but sometimes it's cool as long as you are comfortable doing it and say, hey, I'll give it a shot. Even if they want to film the first one, that's fine. I mean, it might take you a couple tries, as long as you be I have to really be aware of the little voice that says, this is not okay.
Hmm.
There's something's not right. I mean, it's okay to be nervous about things that you're doing. I always get nervous about every stunt, always, even if it's really small. That's just who I am. I was always nervous as a performer at, doing an act on stage every
But you
time.
use those
You
nerves to
use
to
that.
per- to,
It's
to
good.
perform.
Nervous energy is good, and you
Yeah.
should, because you always want to respect what you're doing, because especially in a physical environment when you're performing like that, the minute you stop caring or stop paying attention is, again, when injuries happen and things go wrong. So it's good to be nervous. It's not good to be terrified. And if you are doubting your ability, or if you think, gosh, like I can't see it in my head being successful, then you gotta say something. You
Right,
have to
right.
ask for rehearsal. You have to break it down into pieces. You cannot let people bully you on set, whether it's the director, your boss, or another stunt person, or whoever it is, the AD screaming at you to hurry up. It is just bottom line safety.
Yep,
So
safety first for sure. That's the number
yep,
one rule, safety
yep,
first. So,
yeah.
um, well, I know we got to wrap up here, but pretty much it's been awesome talking to you. By the way, I love
You,
going through and reminiscing about these stunt performing days. But
yes. Yeah.
is I know you can't always talk about upcoming projects or something that you've booked or whatever, but what is next for you? And is there a dream project in your mind that you would love to work
Oh,
on? Or
well, the funny thing is, I was just telling someone the other day, like, I could die a completely happy woman right now. I mean, I've pretty much met all
that
of
was
my
it.
goals and my dreams, in every aspect of my performing career, which is amazing. So I'm sure there'll be
Yes.
more in the future, but I'm very thankful for what I've already been able to do. But yeah, I know I have a couple of upcoming projects. I just found out that one of my, well, I have to be careful what I say, but a really, really fun project, probably one of my favorite projects I've worked on, a TV show, just got picked up for season 2. And so
Awesome.
we'll be doing season 2 for that. I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. It doesn't really matter to me, TV shows or movies, or, sometimes big projects can be 10 times more stressful than a smaller, uh, a TV show or student film or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all who you work with too, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are talks of the Terminator movie turning into a sequel, a series, actually, a trilogy.
Hmm.
So, depending on how well that one does, if they
Right,
get,
right.
the go ahead for the next 2, then awesome. I would love to be a part of that and
Right.
continue.
And you'll have some notice of what weight you need to be and how much muscle mass
right.
in advance.
Yes, I'll be
hopefully,
ready.
So that
I'll be
it's
ready
not
this time.
detrimental
Yes.
to your health.
Yes,
Well,
I'll be ready
you
this
look
time.
great. We can't wait
Thank
to see your
you.
moves on film.
Thank you.
In Terminator. I know we've seen your moves on film, but I will link all of that here also. So if you want to see Jessi in action, you can see her at jessifisher.com. Actually, she's got
Yep.
that on lock, which is nice. And follow her on her social media if she's got it, and I'll post all of that. But it's really remarkable. I love seeing strong women in general, not just kicking butt in
Yes.
stunts, but in general. So it's always an honor and awesome to talk to you. So thank you so much for being a guest on
Absolutely.
Culture Chat.
Oh, of course, anytime. I mean, it's been a pleasure, and it's really been cool because a lot of the people I don't think I told you this, but Chris Leps, I think you've had him on it, and Ryan Watson, of course.
Yeah.
Chris was probably the first stuntman I have ever met in my entire life. Way before
that makes sense. And if Chris is listening,
so.
he'll say, "Thanks a lot. Now you make me sound like a dinosaur." But yes, and he was also, of course, on my panel at San Diego Comic Con.
Yes,
and so,
it was so great to see him and to follow his career. He has been nothing but encouraging and really helped me out a lot. And I just worked with Ryan Watson actually on
awesome
shoots, so that was fantastic. It's a very small world, and
it is, and that's the thing about the stunt community. It's like its own family. You know what I mean? There's like you're always kind of interconnected, and there's like people we all have met or worked with, and it's really cool because you could share something that I think outsiders don't really understand. Like there's like a little bit of a code.
Yep, exactly.
So.
Well, that's the thing, and I do want to put this out there too. I mean, to anybody listening, like whether or not you're involved in stunts, I mean, when I started stunts, knowing who to ask about, how to do stuff or any questions that people have, there really isn't a set way to get into the industry. So that's a very common question I get asked, and I am more than happy to share my experiences or things like that. I mean, I can't tell you exactly how it's going to turn out, but I can tell you a lot of my experiences and point you in the right direction, because I know a lot of people help me out, and that's what I want to do as well, is really encourage that community and really help people out, especially women, because women need to stop being each other's enemies in their competition and to start being each other's like biggest support system. So
absolutely. Well, straight from Jessi Fisher. Ask questions, safety first.
Yes.
And put yourself out there. So, well, thank you again so much. It was awesome to talk to you. I'll definitely have you back on because I know you're doing other cool projects, and we'll get our pal Mike Jaworski on as well.
Yes, we'll get him eventually. Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks so much, Mimi. Have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to Culture Chat and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please subscribe and rate my podcast. Feel free to leave me suggestions or send an email to mimi@culturechatpodcast.com or follow me on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.